Are you thinking about moving to Tennessee? Well, stay tuned because in this video, Shad and I are going to sit down and talk about the things you may not like about living in Northeast Tennessee. So Shad, let's start. We're both transplants. We didn't grow up in Northeast Tennessee. We both lived in other areas and moved here at a little bit later age. So tell a little bit about how you ended up in Northeast Tennessee.
Yeah, so I'm originally from the Midwest, the state of Indiana. Go Hoosiers. But my sister's family's lived here for over 20 years, and I came to visit a million times, and I just loved it. Every time I went back, I would be like, one of these days I'm going to move down there. So, 9.5 years ago, it kind of lined up for me, and it's been fantastic since. But that's kind of the story of how I found myself here in the Tri-Cities. What about you?
Well, I'm a Midwesterner too, as you know. Grew up in Michigan, but I moved to some other states before getting to Tennessee. I lived out in Bellevue, Washington, near Seattle. I lived in Houston, Texas, Scottsdale, Arizona, and I landed in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, lived there 15 years. And then I had a chance to relocate to Northeast Tennessee. And I'd always dreamed of living in Tennessee. My parents had brought my brother and I here, of course, over to Gatlinburg, and we went to the first Cracker Barrel. That kind of tells you a little bit about our age. And so I was excited to move to Tennessee, which kind of brings us to one of our first points, things that, people might not like. The slower pace of life, which I know some people think that's crazy. Aren't you moving there because of the slower pace of life? Did you experience that at all? Or
Yeah, I think it's just more of a little bit of a shock to some people. It's a change of, slow change of pace. It's an adjustment. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. I tell people a lot of times. So last summer, even as an example, I drove over to Nashville, had to go through Knoxville, I-40, those type of places, and the traffic is just ridiculous. And, people from the big cities might get used to that after a while. But I noticed, especially when you're coming back from those type of places, that you can just sense it. You can just feel it just starting to relax, anxiety starting to go away. It's just overall, it's just a wonderful feeling to have that slower change of pace. And it's not that everybody is just moving around real slow. It's just less anxiety, more peaceful living, which really I think people really come to grasp and really love.
Well, I remember when I first moved here, and it was over 18 years ago, and moving from South Florida to Tennessee. I mean, one day I'm at the Martini Bar, and the next day I'm at the farmer's market. So it was kind of like the Bionic Woman, kind of slow motion. And I remember saying to one of the guys that I worked with, I'm like, hey, how long did it take you to get used to living in Tennessee? And he goes, oh, about 5 years. And I thought, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it. But, here I am 18 years later, and I love it. But people do bring up the slower pace of life. Even if they wanted that, they struggle with that a little bit.
Yeah,
so.
And I'm from a small town in the Midwest, and so it wasn't as big of a change for me at all.
Yeah.
But I can imagine someone like you from a larger metropolis area, the hustle and bustle all the way down to what we deal with on a daily basis, which, we don't use words like congestion here when it comes to traffic, things of that nature. So, but definitely not as a big of a switch for me.
Yeah, and if I came from my hometown in Michigan, I think it wouldn't have been for me.
Right.
So here's another thing I really noticed, and I don't think this bothered you so much, but, again, I'm going back to Fort Lauderdale. I'm driving on I-95, probably one of the most dangerous roads in the country, and I'm used to it, like you mentioned. But then I get here to Northeast Tennessee, and you get to the secondary roads. They're curvy. I like to say skinny roads, like narrow, little to no shoulder. A big truck comes by. Oh my goodness, with one of those big mirrors, you're like going really slow on the edge. I was scared to death. But on the other hand, we do have great roads. I don't want people to think, we don't have highways and stuff.
Yeah, especially like in the Midwest, out in the rural areas of the county, they're more likely they're dirt roads. I don't really know too many dirt roads around here at all. In fact, with the topography and the slope of the mountains and the hillsides, I don't think it'd be a good idea to have a lot of dirt roads. But I have found that even the skinny rural roads are still paved and well maintained. Now, we also don't have the freeze thaw cycle to deal with that they do up north that really busts the roads up in the winter. So I think overall, the quality of roads here are actually top notch.
Well, actually, I read an article about that on Autoblog. In Tennessee was rated number 3 in the country as having the best roads. So they do have great roads. And I will say, and I know you're going to agree with this, we take the back roads all the time to go places. And now I even find myself going like 45 miles an hour in a 30-mile turn. So you do get used to them, but I have had people comment. I actually had somebody comment that they go, we can't move there. We were going up and down and around. And I thought, oh my goodness, it sounded like they were going to that hotel in The Shining, like that. But it's not like that.
No, I prefer the back roads.
Yeah.
Less traffic, it's just you and the back roads. I love the curves and the hills and coming over that hill and seeing the mountains and seeing the valleys and the grassy fields and stuff like that. To me, that's very part of the peacefulness of living here. And the good news too is, I think for a lot of people, so where I'm from, it's flat. Easy to grid out the roads, like a lot of major cities are gridded out. So if you miss your left, you just go up to the next left and hang another left, and you're right back to where you started. But here, we don't have the grid system as much because of the topography and the angle of the mountains and the hillsides. But there seems to be a lot of different, you can take 2, 3, 4 different routes to almost anywhere you want to go. And so that kind of breaks that monotony up a little bit too. So I love the back roads, but yes, it has come up from time to time that they're a little too skinny for some people. But I think you adjust to that pretty quick when you live here.
And you always have GPS. You know me,
Yeah.
I like my GPS. But another thing really actually I thought of along the same subject, street lights. Again, if you're coming from a big town, you're just used to everything being lit up. I'd walk my dog at 2 a.m. It's about like daylight. But, even if you live in the city, we're not all lit up here. And if you go again on these secondary roads, it's your headlights, the stars above. You might not even pass another car. So for some people, again, that sort of freaks them out. And you get used to that.
Yeah.
You definitely get used to that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really have much to say in regards to that other than, where I'm from, again, countryside, I did prefer to have less lights so you could see the stars at night.
So let's talk about weather. We got the 4 seasons. You want to say anything about the weather? What?
Yeah, I tell people all the time, if you want 4 seasons, I really can't think of a better location in the country when you talk about, do we experience winters and summers? Absolutely. The extremes sometimes. But if you're a little bit farther north, you have a little harsher winter time most of the time, or longer winters. A little bit farther south, you get into the deep heat of the South. So I think really geography-wise, couldn't get much better when it comes to having all 4 seasons. But with that being said, yeah, there are times when it's just not fun. This past January, it seemed like most of the month it was pretty much on the cold side, and you get tired of that after a while. But I tell people all the time too, is when you look at the averages, January is still the coldest month of the year, but you average 45 degrees as a high for the day. So you're typically above freezing during the day. It does get below freezing at night for a short length of time. But we have the extremes of the seasons, but not at the length of some people that move here, for instance, from Texas. I've had people tell me that they've had 60 days in a row of being over 100 degrees. a hot day in Johnson City is 88, 90 degrees. And the good news about here too is from a standpoint of that even in the hot, humid days of the summer, it generally does still get down in the 60s at night. So it can still be somewhat tolerable parts of the day, depending on the time of year. But yeah, we have the extremes when it comes to our weather for sure.
Yeah, I love the Four Seasons because I originally came from Michigan, you from Indiana. So we like it because it's kind of a scaled back version of that. But I would say the downside for me is winter. I don't like to be cold. I just don't like it. I like the seasons. I like, we have fall, you're carving pumpkins. Okay, now the leaves are falling. It's Thanksgiving. Maybe we have some snow, maybe not. But around Christmas, I'm going to be shallow. I like the idea of the winter fashions, wearing a pair of boots, jacket, your sweaters. Because if you live somewhere warm, you put that on, and at 2:00 in the afternoon, you're putting shorts on. But I could cut winter out by about a month, even though it's a lot shorter than the Midwest. So that might be in the rainy, maybe a few too many rainy days, but that's why it's so beautiful here.
Yeah, and again, going back to the extremes, December, January, February are pretty much considered the winter months here. But we still have extremes in the positive direction of there can be days, and I think I remember a Christmas Eve that I golfed a few years ago, and it was 70 degrees. So the golf courses are open year round. So you have some bad days. You stay home if you can. When we get some snow, for instance, we don't get a lot of snow here, but it actually is very beautiful when it does snow here. It sticks to the trees, it sticks to the roof lines, it sticks to the grass. A lot of times it doesn't stick to the pavement because it's retained that heat throughout the day. And again, being average above freezing, even in the coldest month of the year. Again, that's the positive twist of having the seasons. One thing I saw online actually the other day as I was looking up some average temperatures and stuff that even in the summer, the hottest part of the summer here is July, and the average temperature is 85 degrees as a high. But it's also the wettest month of the year, which I'm surprised actually to hear. So maybe that helps tamper it down a little bit. Also could lead to some humidity from time to time. I know when people talk about, the humidity is there is terrible or stuff like that, I think that comes from a little bit of ignorance of not really living in other areas of the country or things of that nature, because it's really not that bad. In fact, there was one time that I was in Charleston, South Carolina at the end of June, beginning of July. I thought I was going to die.
Yeah, it's hot. Yeah, Savannah, same thing. But,
it was super hot.
Our nights cool down.
Yes.
They cool down. So
Yeah.
I think we have a good mixture. There are some downsides, but there's about something for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not going to be that same temperature year round. Like I imagine some places like Hawaii, you're probably 75 to 80 degrees every single day. But if you want all four seasons, this is a great place to be.
Which leads us to allergies. So I'm going to read this real quick. I read this online. It's evident that while our unique combination of temperate climate, moisture, and biodiversity make East Tennessee a wonderful place to call home, they can also make it a difficult place for allergy sufferers. And this is by Nick Panella, Doctor of Ear, Nose, and Throat Consultants of East Tennessee. So it's not a great place for seasonal allergies. I don't really think it's all year round. And he was speaking more specifically probably to maybe Knoxville's probably one of the more severe areas of the country. And Johnson City and our area kind of falls behind that. I've taken allergy medicine. I'm not taking it now. It'd just be something probably for somebody that really suffers from severe allergies to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm lucky I don't have allergies, so it's not a big deal to me. But again, another example would be out on the golf course. Again, apparently I golf a lot.
You do?
But sometimes you can see that big puff of green,
Oh
yellowish
yeah, yeah.
cloud of pollen going across the countryside, but or on your cars. You'll be washing your cars a little bit more maybe in the springtime, but it is something to be aware of for sure because
Definitely.
everything grows here.
Yeah, the beauty of it and the downside.
Right.
So, another thing I'm thankful for here, we've talked about this before, are airports. We have the Tri-City Airport right here in the area in Blunttville. It's centrally located. If you're flying in and out, look at airport code TRI. And you can drop people off. You've picked me up and at the airport, drop me off. You're not going to lose somebody. You can easily park, come about 45 minutes. Me, I'm always early. I'm an hour and a half, 2 hours before my flight, but easy peasy to use. Okay, there's 3 airlines that fly out of there. American, Delta, and Allegiant Airlines offering direct flights Orlando, St. Pete, Tampa, Atlanta, Dallas, Fort Worth, and Charlotte. They're adding another one, probably.
Yeah, right now I
Yeah.
guess they're waiting on a certain grant or something with the government, but they're talking about a direct flight to Chicago. I think that's going to increase as we move forward as well, with maybe some more direct flights because the Hard Rock Casino that just recently just went in Bristol, Virginia, is going to draw a lot more traffic through the airport. So we're hoping that they provide more direct flights because whenever you have to experience multiple connections in different airports, the Tri-Cities is one of the better experiences just because you don't have the long lines, you don't have to wait long, you don't have to be there 2 hours early. I won't tell you when because then maybe you'll miss your flight, but as long as you're there within 45 minutes to an hour of your flight, typically you're fine. It's just when you get to those other airports is when you're hustling and bustling to get to your next flight and scheduled. But that's probably the biggest downfall to our airport is the lack of direct flights. But also people that live here don't just use the Tri-Cities. They will choose also between Asheville, North Carolina's airport and Knoxville as well.
Yeah, and I definitely look at all 3. When I go back home to Michigan to visit my family, I look at Avia, which is Asheville, and TYS, which is Tyson McGee over in Knoxville. Because between the 3, you're going to get to where you're wanting to go. And I am looking forward to that Chicago flight. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, yes, it would. Yeah.
So another thing that was kind of surprising to me, the lakes here. Okay, again, we're from the Midwest, Michigan, surrounded by the Great Lakes. I remember a friend of mine one time from another state was with me, and we went to Lake Michigan, and they go, "Where's the other side?" So kind of used to that. Where the lakes here are a little bit different. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, again, I'm from a small town in the Midwest in Indiana, and we had over 100 lakes in our county. And most of them being natural lakes. So totally used to the lake environment. In fact, the small town I'm from was considered a lake town, where in the winter time there might have been 1,000, 1,500 people, and then the summers closer to 10,000. So it can easily cause some congestion within your small town, but totally used to lakes. The lakes here really aren't more on the natural side. They're more of the dammed up reservoirs. Part of the natural water flow from the mountains all the way through the state to the Mississippi River that the Tennessee Valley Authority handles. They start that water flow and retention here in this area because Watauga Lake, from what I understand, which is just outside of Johnson City, is the highest elevated lake within their system. So all of that mountain water and everything starts here and ends up in the Mississippi River in the end. But that's what we have here in general. We have mountain lakes, nice sized lakes. People love to go visit them. I love Watauga Lake, South Holston Lake. They're both very similar, more in the elevated areas of the mountains. But then Boone Lake, which is probably the most popular lake just because of the convenience of it just being on the outskirts of Johnson City.
Yeah, and we were just on Boone Lake maybe 3 months ago. A friend of ours has a house over there. We were out on a boat, and it's beautiful. It's sort of more of the homes have a little bit of those cliffs
Yeah.
down to the lake. I don't know, for some reason it sort of reminded me of the Upper Peninsula a little bit up there. But talk about the levels, because that was something I wasn't, the water
Yeah,
levels.
as they handle the water levels, the Tennessee Valley Authority handles the summer and winter levels, the winter pool, summer pool levels here. From what I understand, that can vary about 13 feet. So they start filling it up. I think right now, actually, they're starting to slowly rise for summer pool levels, but it's around 13 feet variance. So there are some channels and some lower areas of the reservoirs or lakes that will dry up during the wintertime, but there's still areas that are definitely usable, navigable still within that. But that can be, sometimes people are like, hey, what's going on, when they can see, the bedrock to the side of the water. But that's what generally is what's going on, is just transferring between summer and winter levels.
Yep. So we have beautiful lakes. They just are. You're looking at them on the map. You go, whoa, that's kind of skinny. So they're dammed up rivers, basically.
Basically, yes. Yeah.
So here's another one. People move here all the time to Northeast Tennessee. I probably wasn't thinking about this when I moved here. I just wanted to move to a smaller place, like Hallmark Town, that kind of thing. But the less rules, regulations, and restrictions. Now, we've got less of all of that. Definitely, we've got a lot of freedom here in Tennessee, but it's something people struggle with. Even when they want it, they struggle with it.
Yeah, people are moving here because of some of the liberal ideas from more government intrusion into people's lives. We've heard horror stories from people of just having enough's enough. Actually, one client had talked about catching a government official going through her trash at the road to make sure that she's recycling correctly, or they would be fined.
Oh, wow.
So there are instances like that we hear about all the time around the country. And what we like here is a little bit more of the freedom side of things, and being able to do what you can, especially in the rural areas, less restrictions. But I also say the good news is you can do what you want. The bad news is your neighbors can do what they want. So sometimes that's not ideal, but sometimes it's not that big a deal either. But you do have more freedom here when it comes to restrictions and government intrusion into people's lives, and that's part of the draw for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we both see when we're working with buyers that are moving some of the states that are really regulated, we want the freedom, but it's a challenge for them because they've been so controlled. Yeah. They're like, we don't do it like that there. We don't do it. Well, welcome to Tennessee. Take a deep breath, relax, and it's going to be all right.
It's going to be okay.
So here is something we said we're never, ever, ever, ever talking about, but we are. We're going to talk about snakes, coyotes, bears, and bugs.
Oh, my.
Oh, my, yeah. It kind of makes me smile because I have had more than one email from people that are freaked out about snakes. The most recent, the gal said, what I'm worried about, am I going to be running into a snake every time I come around the corner walking my dog? No, probably not. I've seen one snake since I've been here. One, it was a king snake. I know that's a good snake. I don't believe in good snakes. That's just me. I hate all of them. But how many have you seen?
Yeah, well, I haven't seen many either. I would say in the little over 9 years I've been here, 3 maybe. But of course, I guess it depends on what you do. If you're out in the woods more, if you hike a lot more, you're probably going to see more for sure. But it's not anything that like like some people just freak out because they read things or they see things on the internet. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes that's a ploy from people saying, you don't want to live there because there's nothing but snakes and spiders and all kinds of terrible things that are happening to you as you live there. But that's kind of to maybe stop some people from moving here. But
Yeah.
I have not found it to be an issue at all.
And I'm just gonna, I always like to look up the facts. What are the facts? An article about Arizona animals, the states in the U.S. with the most snakes, Texas, Mississippi, Arizona, Nevada, Louisiana. It goes on from there. Tennessee's not in the top 10. Florida, the Everglades. Did you see that article about the pile of pythons they found? I just burned my house down. 10 states with the most venomous snakes reported by Insider Monkey. Arizona, Texas, New Mexico, Alabama, Mississippi, again, California. Tennessee is not in the top 10. So yes, we have snakes. We're going out showing property. It's knee-high grass. We're not going to be trekking through that. But we aren't even one of the top states. Sometimes people are asking this, and they're from like Arizona, which I did see a lot of snakes, including rattlesnakes when I lived out there.
Yeah.
So I think we talked enough about snakes.
Yeah, I don't like them that much. No, I would just say too, when it comes to, in the summertime when there's a lot of undergrowth in the forest, in the woods, I tend not to go in there as much because I don't want to run across a snake, and I'm allergic to poison ivy. So I try to stay away from those type of environments. Now in the wintertime when there's less undergrowth and stuff that, you can see everything. There's no problems to walk into the woods, but I try to avoid certain scenarios to where I might run across one. But
we'll probably trip over one on their way out today.
And again, I golf a lot, and I don't see them when I'm out golfing. And I remember golfing out in Arizona once, actually, where I saw signs saying "Beware rattlesnake habitat."
Yeah.
And I would say, well, I lost that golf ball.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things, here's another thing, coyotes, which I used to see coyotes out on the golf course in Arizona in the morning on the way to work. We have coyotes. Sometimes you can hear them in the distance. I don't worry about them much. We do have a small dog, Miss Lexi. I do watch her, by woods. We probably wouldn't leave her out in the fenced yard at night or anything like that. And we do see in February and March some articles about coyotes. Kind of watch that with your dogs and cats in February, March, because it's a breeding season and they're out and about.
Yeah, I don't worry about coyotes as much.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
And bears. People bring up bears a lot.
Yeah, I mean we have some black bears in the Appalachian Mountains, and I've seen a couple just randomly since I've lived here. But from what I understand, most of the time they're young males that are trying to find their way, trying to stay away from the adult males and trying to find their own territory. Or are hungry, trying to find something to eat. But I think a saying that I've heard before is when it comes to black bears, you're supposed to act big and yell at them, get away. Versus if you ran into a grizzly bear, which we don't have any here, you're supposed to play dead.
Thank goodness, yeah.
And if you run into a polar bear, you are dead.
It's all over, yeah. It's all over.
So.
Well, I did, again, look up an article because I'm curious about this. There's been 24 fatal black bear attacks over the past 20 years, all across North America. So that's, not a lot. And 2 of them occurred in Tennessee. One in 2006 in Cherokee National Forest, one in 2020 in the Great Smoky Mountain Park. But I think the key is, you put your food away, you button up your trash, and stay away from the bears.
Yeah. Yeah, basically in the end, don't think this is Disney World. This is wildlife. This is, they're going to protect their young. They're not to be petted or interact with. Just stay away from them. Yeah.
Which leads us to bugs. And I'm going to say, I had lived here, I don't know how many years, and one day you brought up something about mosquitoes, and I thought, I never think about mosquitoes. I lived here like 10 years and hadn't given a thought about mosquitoes.
Right, right. Yeah, no, my first awakening when it came to the bug situation is I was down here visiting. I hadn't moved here yet. I was at my sister's house, and my brother-in-law opened up the back door to get the grill started. We were going to grill out that night for dinner, and he left the door wide open. And I'm like, hey, what are you doing? You're going to let all the bugs in. And he's like, what bugs? And I was like, yeah, good point. Where are your bugs? Because I guess, do we have bugs? Absolutely.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you can't get away from bugs anywhere on the planet unless you live in
Stink
probably
bugs.
Antarctica or someplace. But it's just I know where I'm from again especially in the deep of the summer, heat of the summer. You can't sit out and enjoy a meal at 6:30 at night. You're just going to get ate up by mosquitoes. It was really bad. So one year after I graduated from college, my parents decided to have a party for me. That morning, I remember my stepdad going around the perimeter of the property of the yard and everything and spraying for mosquitoes. He did that twice throughout the day. And then even at the party, you spray yourself with bug spray with DEET, 100% DEET, whether that's good for you or not is another story, but, they'll find an area, one little smidgen of your skin that you don't have coverage, and they'll bite you, so, mosquitoes is a real thing to kind of just make it not enjoyable to be outside very much sometimes. And here, we've sat out on the deck at 7, 8 o'clock at night. And again, we don't really experience it. Now, I guess it does depend on where you live. If you have some ponding water close by your property, more woods, things of that nature, yeah, you're probably going to get bit from a few mosquitoes now and then. But it's not nearly what I experienced growing up in the Midwest, without a doubt.
Now, here's one that is close to my heart. This area, Northeast Tennessee, is not a shopping mecca. You're not going to be going into a Nordstrom's and they're playing the grand piano. You're not going to go to all the designer stores and everything like that. I think that took a little bit of adjustment for me to get used to, and now I could care less about it. But for some people, that is a big thing. They like those big department stores. They like the designer stores. You can get a little more of that in Knoxville, but really you have to travel more to Nashville, I think, to get that. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm not a big shopper, so it doesn't affect me as much. But there is one store, Costco.
I know I knew where we were going with that. Yeah.
Waited forever in Indiana before I moved here. We finally got a Costco 2 or 3 years before I moved here. And I didn't think much of it, but you can fall in love with that type of a store pretty quick. So I really enjoyed it, and then moved down here, no Costco. Now there are Sam's Clubs here, but the closest Costco is in Knoxville, or there's a couple more in South Carolina that are about the same distance. So there's a Costco within about an hour and a half from here, but that's the one thing that I'm still hoping hits at some point in the future. But other than that, yeah, it's not a big deal for me at all when it comes to that. But.
Yeah, we've got so many more stores coming in, local neat boutiques and stuff, and the big box stores. We've got the Pinnacle, we've got John City Mall. So you're going to get what you need, and then so many people shop on Amazon. But yeah, it's not a shopping mecca. If that's your thing, you're probably not going to like this.
But Johnson
area.
City does have an indoor mall that is thriving.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
There's a lot of indoor malls that are closing around the country. Johnson City's not one of them. And we continue to grow at a very leisurely pace. We see more and more as we live here, more restaurants, more stores. So for me, it's just one store that I want, Costco.
And here's another one that could be a pro or a con for some people. Very conservative area. And just looking at, we're not going into our opinions. We don't do this on our channel, but the politics voting record. Tennessee is one of the more conservative states in the U.S. Northeast Tennessee is one of the more conservative areas in Tennessee. Over 60% of the people in the last 2 elections voted Republican. So that means a little less than 40% voted, something else. So I don't know. What is your experience been?
Yeah,
on
I
this?
mean, we generally don't try to talk about politics, religion, those type of things. But it does come up, and it comes up quite a bit actually from the people that are looking to move here from the bluer states, for instance, the Californias of the world. It's not that, you kind of feel bad for some of the people when it comes to born and raised in a certain area of the country, love everything about where they live, but it's just politically has just become unbearable for them. And they're looking for more of what we would call normal. We feel like this is what normal America is here. And one of the things when it comes to conservative versus liberal, people don't get in your face and be very divisive as far as yelling at you or telling you we can't be friends because we think differently. Very more welcoming here for difference of opinions. I would say the one thing that really the locals just kind of get a little nervous about with people moving here is just don't want it to change. They like the way it is here. And I tell a lot of the locals when I talk to them about the people that we help move here is that that's what they're looking for. They're not here to make it different. They like the feeling of what it means to live here and the people that live here and how nice people are and things of that nature. And again, you can have a difference of an opinion here and people won't, try to destroy you because of it.
Yeah, you're free to be you.
Yeah.
You're free.
Yeah.
You have freedom. And
Yeah.
I think that's really what people are looking for. So, there you have it. Several things that maybe we struggled with when we first moved here. You might struggle with. You may not have an issue with any of it. I'm Stephanie, and this is Shad, and we're part of the Freck group with Greater Impact Realty, and we specialize with helping people that like you that are thinking about moving to Northeast Tennessee. And if you've got questions, you can give us a call, text, or email. We're going to be happy to help you as you explore the possibility of moving here. And like we always say, it's never too soon to start planning your move. There's so much to think about. And we hope to see you here in Tennessee, Northeast Tennessee, real soon.